Forget? Help me out and hit that like button if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening somewhere else, what the hell? Pop in and give me a thumb. Say hi while you're at it. Helps me a ton with that damn algorithm. And besides, it's always nice to see you there. All right then, let's hop on that crazy train. All aboard! Oh, shit. Welcome back, friend. And a very happy day before Independence Day to you. Did they give you the day off or did you get gypped? Yeah, me too. What? Gypped? Gypped is derogatory now? Well, maybe Craig shouldn't be such a damn Romanian then. Come on in, friend. Hell, I can't keep up with all these rules anymore. My Zippo. Where's my damn Zippo? I can't find my Zippo. Well, I got this Bic, though. Here. Yeah, baby. That's better. Well, for the time being, YouTube is cooperating. Still, please feel free to subscribe on Rumble as well, and I thank you all for downloading our shows on your favorite podcast platforms. Hey, if you'd like to go above and beyond and get all the material ad-free and downloadable, visit chillin'tales4darknights.com and click the Patrons link in the menu. You'll get special access for as little as $7.99 a month. Also, feel free to visit me over at patreon.com/DrewBlood. You know you want to. So tonight we welcome author Michael Page. This one's a piece of psychological horror in which a researcher locks himself in an isolation chamber to study the psychological effects of solitary confinement. So without further delay, my friends, from author Michael Page, I give you The Lighthouse Project. In early April of 2016, a study was conducted on the psychological effects of solitary confinement under the influence of lights. The following is an account of that study. For privacy and at the request of individuals involved, names and identifying details have been omitted or changed. It was on a Sunday morning when tragedy transpired for Guy. He had just sat down with a frothy cup of flat white when the unknown number dialed his phone. Calling from a New York State Penitentiary was a prison chaplain who opened the conversation with, "Good evening, sir." Then indiscreetly, the chaplain did not hesitate to add, "I regret to inform you about this." The voice, as Guy describes it, was hollow and absent, but trying its best to sound compassionate, like an apathetic machine wired to read an empathetic script. The chaplain continued, "It concerns your brother. Last night he unexpectedly passed away in our custody. The remains have been released to a mortuary and must be claimed within 48 hours, or disposition must be made as provided by law." The call was then affectionately ended with, "We extend our sympathy for your loss." One day after that, a letter of condolence was sent. At 3:15 a.m., March 13th, Guy's twin had hung himself in his cell, ending a 70-day stretch in solitary confinement. An officer had found his somewhat elevated body motionless and unresponsive. A bedsheet had been used, tied off to a plumbing fixture. Death by slow strangulation. Very few ligature marks visible on the neck. Heavy discharges of vomit from both nose and mouth, as summarized in the investigative report. It had been his 4th year of a 25-year sentence for second-degree murder. He had been convicted of killing a woman he was attempting to carjack. "My little brother had issues. I've always known that." Guy fought back the quivering tones in his speech and paused to wipe his eyes. We had just graduated high school when our parents passed from a car accident. They were both killed almost instantly. We had no aunts or uncles, no trustworthy relatives. We just had each other. He got mixed up with bad people. They got in his head and led him down a bad, very crooked path. I gave him all the help he needed. I did. It wasn't enough to steer him from that path, but I never gave up on him. After every phone call, every monitored visit, I told him I'd always be here, waiting for his sentence to clear. Guy also had this to add. I know that I am not alone in my belief that solitary confinement is a monstrous punishment to inmates. My brother had a history of mental issues. He should have been in a hospital, not a prison, let alone an isolated lockup. I believe we've forgotten what it means to correct bad behavior. Torture can't force a broken mind to repair itself. It only forces the mind to behave. That's not a solution or a correction. It's cruelty. Officials from the penitentiary maintained that there was little to no concern that the inmate had been planning to take his own life. Had it been the case, he would have immediately been transferred to a mental health unit. Faced with the cruel separating agent of grief, Guy turned to his research for comfort. He knew that extinguishing solitary confinement was unlikely, considering its worldwide practice, so instead he focused on an alternative approach. His proposal: to capitalize on the benefits that seclusion does have for inmates, while also applying a more humanitarian method for their improvement. His work brought him to an isolation chamber constructed within a former nuclear bunker somewhere off the outskirts of Hempstead, New York, a keepsake of the Cold War. After weeks of lengthy meetings, countless emails, and frustrating phone calls, Guy's preparations were complete. For the next 2 weeks, he would lock himself inside the 6-by-8-foot space, trapped between the cement walls and all-encompassing darkness. I need an environment as authentic as possible, Guy explained at the outset. I found myself drawing a lot of inspiration from The Hole on Alcatraz Island, a pitch-black, tight space without any human contact. Granted, not all isolation cells have these severe conditions, but if we can still produce positive results from the worst treatment possible, imagine the success from less harsh conditions. Start from the bottom, work your way to the top. The room was equipped with a refurbished toilet, up-to-date ventilation, a metal bed frame, and a small table. Bolted atop the table was a lantern fitted with a bulb that could be changed to different colors via remote control. I have a very loud mind, and vivid thoughts are always trying to squeeze their way out, so there's no doubt the sensory deprivation will take a huge toll on me. That's where the light will come into play. As it changes colors, my reactions to those different colors in my mind will be noted. Colors stimulate the brain. There's real psychology there. I hope that the changing colors will act as a tether that will allow my senses to cling on to something, and will perhaps help me manage and endure my time in there with minimal negative effects. Thus, God dubbed this experiment the Lighthouse Project. The ones overseeing the experiment, handpicked by Guy himself, were Ronald Westbrook, a retired clinical and forensic psychologist, Victoria Wick, a therapist specializing in PTSD patients, and Brian Rexford, an independent radio psychologist. Though each came from a different background, they were all equally fueled by discovery and Guy's compelling determination. Together, they agreed on their joint schedules and varying night shifts to observe Guy's behavior and safety throughout the test. They'd be stationed in separate rooms rigged with different screens and connected to night vision cameras within the chamber. Internal audio would also be fed to them by the recorder Guy would have on his person the entire time. Other than documenting and supervising the experiment, they were also to follow another important instruction. Do not, under any circumstances, stop the test. No matter what was said, screamed, or begged, the door would remain locked until the experiment was complete, the only exception being if a hospital was needed. Before being taken to his cell, Guy partook of several psychological tests and interviews to examine his mental capability of taking part in the project. He had taken with him a month's worth of military food packets, drinking water, toilet paper, and batteries for his recorder. When asked if he had preferred a set of different sheets, Guy declined. With everything now in motion, the door was locked, the lights were cut, and the cameras were activated. Day 1. Incarceration. Guy spends his first 10 minutes in absolute darkness lying on his bed. Every so often, he makes a popping sound from his mouth. Minute by minute, the popping becomes a hum, and then graduates into a whistle as Guy taps his foot impatiently. After the 30-minute mark, he records his first log. Day 1, 4/1/16. Audio log, 30 minutes inside.
What a bizarre feeling. My hand is an inch from my face and I can't see it at all. It's pitch black and dead quiet in here. I'm not even sure what to say at this point. I want to hear something other than my breathing bouncing off the walls.
4 hours pass. Guy takes to wandering around the room, appearing to count the number of steps it takes to reach each wall. The result? Not very many. Day 1, 4/1/16. Audio log, 4 hours inside.
It's getting cold in here.
He rubs his hands together.
I should have brought a heater or something with me. I've already lost track of how long I've been here. Maybe that's a good thing. I have to say, this is the worst hotel I've seen. The service is god-awful. Room service, anyone?
Guy, to his credit, forces a smile for the cameras and masks the ever-growing anxiousness with humor. But as the passages of lightless time stack up, his mild uneasiness begins to shift into paranoia. Day 1, 4/1/16. Audio log, 7 hours inside. He taps on his microphone.
What's with the crackling sound on this thing? Is everything working? I've said I'm cold 300 times now, and it hasn't changed a single degree.
He pauses to drink some water.
The blanket isn't helping that much. At least give me a sign this piece of junk is working all right. A knock, a tap, anything. Throw me a bone here.
He sits up with his legs folded on the bed and tears open the first meal packet. He eats it slowly as though to savor the taste and the new sensations it brings. Perhaps he's waiting 7 hours to experience something new in the room's unchanging pitch before it becomes repetitive. It isn't long until Guy takes to pacing the room to each of the walls. The audio captures possibly an old conversation he recounts with someone under his breath, possibly his brother.
It's not unusual,
Rexford explains.
Animals do the same thing when you place them in confined quarters. He's anxious, trapped, and bored. The pacing provides input in his life, builds a mechanism to cope with.
Eventually, Guy crawls into bed and tries to rest. He manages to fall asleep for 10 hours straight, tossing and turning restlessly in his sheets. When he wakes, the realization takes a moment to dawn on him, as he rubs his eyes and tries vainly to get his vision back. He falls back into his pillow and sighs loudly.
Oh, right. That's right. Damn it.
The audio captures. As an entire day passes in the chamber, The adverse effects of his sensory deprivation began to intensify and become especially more evident in his 8th log. Day 2, 4/2/16. Audio log. 30 hours inside.
They're everywhere, aren't they? All over the grainy darkness, so many of them. Spindly shapes are floating around me. I'm hallucinating.
His breathing becomes rapid, shallow.
Aimlessly drifting, bouncing off of nothing. Aimlessly. I think they're organic. Spores. Swarms of them all over the place. What day is it? Can anyone hear me up there?
He knocks on the door.
I said I'm hallucinating.
In view of this, he waves around both hands, sifting his fingers through the invisible objects his mind was manifesting. Before long, he claims to start hearing music in the corner, even snapping his fingers to the non-existent rhythm. For the remainder of the second day, the researchers take note of every hallucination Guy experiences. Visual: a kite on the wall, blooms of jellyfish, spores, a gray cat. Auditory: static from a radio, a piano's G major, incoherent whispers. In the early AM hours of his third day, submerged in darkness, Guy reaches the threshold of his sanity. At 6:53 a.m., he's sitting against the wall, his face buried in the crevice between his knees. Suddenly, without the slightest portent of warning, he chokes out a gasp and flings himself desperately to the toilet. He crams 2 fingers in his mouth, prodding desperately at his throat as he vomits profusely into the bowl. Day 3, 4/3/16. Audio log. 72 hours inside.
Okay, down. Oh God.
He makes some deep guttural sounds.
Something poisonous is inside of me. Slid right down my throat. Will I die? Will I fill up with mushrooms? No.
He induces vomiting.
I don't want to do this.
There's a convulsive gasp.
I want out. Shut it all down, okay? I don't want to be here anymore.
Judging by his panicked utterance, he seems to believe he has swallowed one of the spores. The silver lining behind Guy's severe episode was that it acted as the perfect gauge for the experiment's next step. Now that the deprivation and quarantined blackness has successfully pried away at his resilience, it is time to administer the treatment. In the next instant, the lamp, which was bolted atop the table, lights up. Due to Guy's eyes most likely being weakened from his time in the same bleak enclosure, the white glow only shines as a dim, pale hue at the back of the room. At first, he backs away from it, his expression trapped behind pure shock. It seems that he completely forgot about the lamp's existence until now. A glint of joy shimmers across his face. Slowly, he approaches the table and gently rests his head over it. Nothing is said, but a distinct muffled sob can be heard. For the remaining duration of the test, the bulb will shift its soft glow into a different color every 8 hours or so. By reintroducing Guy back into the light, the overseers hope to negate his long days without stimulation, and in a sense, guide back his rationality. To fit their increasingly different schedules, each overseer agrees to assign themselves a particular color to monitor. Light exposure effects rating. Green, Westbrook.
Subject's anxiety and overall mental tension have lessened considerably. His appetite has returned. Good.
Yellow, Rexford.
Guy seemed uneasy about the room changing color at first, but he seems to be over it. Yellow, being a bold, energetic color, tends to support happy thoughts and optimistic thinking. We especially see this in his recent recordings.
Blue, Rexford.
The compulsion to anxiously pace disappeared with the addition of blue. It looks to be making him tired. He spent most of the time sleeping during the exposure. At least his circadian rhythm seems to be getting back on track.
Purple. Westbrook.
Subject has a strong aversion to the color purple. He started complaining, growing progressively more restless. Possibly an emotional situation from the subject's past. Claims the walls are moving. The color was not active for very long.
Red. Wick.
After looking over Guy's reaction to the purple light, I was especially nervous about what would happen with the color I chose. It didn't dawn on me at the time, but I soon realized that the only red-tinted rooms I could think of were from horror films. But his response has been a positive one. He's more active now, even performing different exercises and physical activities in the small space. Although he's been lying in bed for some time now. Oh,
She coughs.
he's masturbating.
Day by day, Guy, who has previously been screaming about swallowing hallucinations, starts to act like himself again. As the positive effects become more tangible, the lights reveal their restorative power on his mind. In the early morning of the 7th day, as Guy stirs in his sheets, something else appears in camera. Small, white, furry, with a pointed, twitching nose. A mouse scurries along the wall, apparently granted access to the room by way of an unchecked crack under Guy's bed, possibly even led there by the leftover crumbs from his food packets. It lets out a chattering noise, which immediately catches Guy's attention. He takes a moment to register the sound before hearing it again. In a split second, he jumps to his feet and twists his neck all over the place to find the tiny creature. By the time he spies its sharp movement, it has already crept past him and into the hidden crack. After the discovery, he deliberately starts to leave pieces of food under his bed. A newfound habit develops where he lies along the cold floor, constantly checking to see if the mouse has returned. While Guy's intentions are unclear, Rexford shares his thoughts in his report.
I highly doubt Guy was going to hurt the thing. He's locked in stasis right now in a room that never changes, save for the alternating lighting. It's been a week now, and we've seen a lot of improvement, but it's far from a full recovery. The mouse triggered something for him, a reminder that there was something else other than four walls and a toilet. It's a little piece of life for him to hold on to.
As many attempts as Guy makes, there's still no sign of his mouse lure working. Throughout the next few days, Guy's overall temperament begins to shift. In spite of the light and the recuperating stepping stones he's taken, paranoia starts to raise its way back, like a contaminating spill of oil. Day 9, 4/9/16. Audio log. 216 hours inside.
They've forgotten about me, haven't they? Forgotten about the test. I shouldn't have trusted them as I did. At some point, my food and water will run out. What then? I'll disappear. What else? Bastards. Torturers. Lock me up and throw away the key. Are you all still taking notes?
He raises a middle finger to each camera.
Jot that down.
Day 9, 4/19/16. Audio log. 218 hours inside.
I don't want to see these four walls anymore. Every crack, every ancient smudge is leaving a permanent stain on my memory. Is this what you had to see? Is this the hell you lived in?
It is assumed he is speaking about his twin.
I don't want to sleep in these greasy sheets. I don't want to eat this dry, tasteless food, drying like sawdust on my tongue. Here is where I'll die, where not even God will hear me.
He gasps.
It's back. That pressure I felt before, drilling right into my temple. It's been coming back more frequently lately. Sometimes I think the walls are moving. When I close my eyes, it feels like I'm underwater, traversing invisible depths nobody cares about. The room is sinking further now and then. Sooner or later, it's going to crush me.
Day 9, 4916. Audio log. 224 hours inside.
I need to move, walk around a while. The valves in my legs are starting to swell from not moving. Hurts like hell. Damn. I need to stretch them, but I can't. I can't leave the bed. I can't because I don't want to. When I start to stand, a bad feeling gnaws at me, like an overwhelming premonition, whatever it is. Don't move. For the love of God, don't move. Something is at risk of being stimulated. The pressure is worse than ever. It isn't leaving this time. Even the air feels different. Every breath leaves an acrid taste in the back of my throat, as though I'm sharing the air with a different mouth.
Even with his growing protest to leave the confines of his bed, Guy finally succumbs to the stabbing pangs of hunger. He crawls cautiously out of bed and swiftly moves to his supplies. As he reaches for one of the packets, he immediately jolts and stops. Winding around in a flurry, he retreats to his bed and grabs the recorder. Day 9, 4916. Audio log. 230 hours inside.
Gone. Torn to bits. My food. I can't. I don't. What happened?
Guy has discovered that 5 of his once sealed food rations are torn to shreds, gnawed open, the flexible pouch packaging gutted by some unthinkable means. With the lack of any footage, the researchers deduced that mice were the most likely culprits. If one had found its way inside, what was to stop more from sneaking in and raiding the unguarded stash? Although it is unexpected, there is still plenty of food left untouched to make do until the experiment's final day. A day Guy's rattled mind has transfigured into fiction by now. His already withered nerves are shot, so Guy's refusal to leave the safe boundary of his bed is only magnified. The soft light draped over the table is not providing even a sliver of comfort. Unsurprisingly, he can no longer fall asleep. Sometime later, between the hours of 3 and 4 a.m., a scream resounds in the chamber. The cameras reveal Guy scrambling backward, pressing the small of his back firmly against the wall, with his eyes bulging and his fingers hooked into his chest. Day 10, 4/10/16. Audio log. 240 hours inside. Guy's breathing is stifled.
Just now, right at the edge of my bed. Oh, God, I heard something. It sounded like movement, something rustling about. Then a growl, a horrible growl. I'm not hallucinating. I know I'm not. There was a growl. The air is thick. There's a potent, rotten taste in my mouth. Something was there. Something was watching me.
The captured audio does not interpret Guy's growl, but the feed does suffer a few stuttering distortions in particular places. As the next sluggish roll of hours passes, Guy complains frequently about a growing sickness he feels, the increasing hidden pressures, the thickening rot in the air. The tension builds until his body ultimately demands to purge itself. He gags, covers his mouth, and then recklessly bolts to the toilet. When the vomiting sounds stop, the shaking in his legs ceases. He finds the strength to stand up and return to the safety net of his bed. Suddenly he stops. The already fleeting color drains from his face. His hands quiver nervously, pinned to his sides. A lingering thread of bile runs down his chin. The team begins to worry he is having some sort of stroke. Luckily, his motor skills return to him as he falls backward in a series of chaotic steps and collapses in the opposite unlit corner of the room. He sits there for some time. Eventually, he searches for his device and presses a trembling finger on record. Day 10, 4/10/16. Audio log, 245 hours inside. Guy whispers into his recorder.
I'm not alone. There is something here. I felt it just now, standing a few inches from me. Why? I see nothing, but it was there, looming over me, waiting for me.
Adopting the shaded corner as his newfound security, Guy does not return to his bed or the light blanketing it. Even as the bulb alternates to different colors, none of them spur a different reaction. He merely sits there, staring into unoccupied spaces and craning his neck as though seeing something. Day 10, 4/10/16. Audio log, 248 hours inside.
There is movement. I'm sure of it now. I'm no longer alone. But what are they? Ghosts? No. Too active.
He takes a hushed breath.
At first, I thought the walls were moving, but I was wrong. It's the light that is moving, rippling and being bent as they pass through it. The darkness is properly marinating my brain to see them. Sometimes vague silhouettes, sometimes textureless shapes, sometimes shifting and then reshifting. Moments of motion, sometimes clicking their teeth, molar against molar, clack, clack, sometimes scraping nails on the floor. They're drawn to the light, moving only where it touches, hiding in it like a blanket. I don't think they can see me. Not yet.
One notable piece of footage reveals Guy making a poor attempt to reach his food and water rations. His head scans the room in a back and forth motion, as if checking that the vacant coast of space is clear. Slowly, he drifts back into the reaching glow, inching closer to the supplies. When he is nearly there, he freezes. He turns his head towards something the cameras can't see, something under the bed. After a moment of staring, he aborts the mission in a mad sprawl and retreats to the shadows of the corner. Day 11, 4/11/16. Audio log, 265 hours inside.
I saw a mouse under the bed, picking at one of the scraps I left.
Guy stifles a sob.
Then it started screaming and squirming all over the place. Blotches of blood were left wherever it rolled. Then it stopped and started to float, as though it were caught in something's invisible jaws. Digging into it, opening it up, entrails dangling like wet ribbons. I am not safe.
Day 11, 4/11/16. Audio log, 273 hours inside.
I know how they're getting in. Small spaces in the room. I want to call them pockets. They squeeze their way in. The horrible stench returns. They squeeze their way out. I think I know where the pockets are too. One on the ceiling, one on the left wall, one under the bed. They're everywhere, getting more and more numerous, getting louder. Clack, 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 clack. I've lost count of how many now. I have to stay away from the light. It will only make me easier prey. Please, if you can hear me, turn off the light.
The visual hallucinations haunting him only grow worse from there. Every audio log received grows primarily more fearful about the unseen things coming in and out of the room. While there are no remains of a mutilated rodent found under the bed, signs of discoloring on the floor are present. Despite the 3 hellish days he has spent in the dense unlit veil, Guy refuses to leave the shelter of that corner. The light, which had previously hoisted his sanity back, was now what he avoids. What should have nullified the other appears to only intensify it now. As though summoned by misfortune, the researchers face an anomaly they did not prepare for. Both the cameras and Guy's recorder begin to malfunction. The stutter and audio distortions from earlier worsen. What sound does manage to leak out of Guy's device is corrupted with hisses of static and delays. Unable to fix the issue, they are forced to make a decision: end the experiment early and collect the accumulated data, or follow Guy's original instructions and proceed to the final day. With 2 in favor, Westbrook and Rexford, of continuing, and 1 opposed, Wick, the decision is made to endure until the 14th day. Even if the audio is no longer functional, there is still plenty of visual input to extract. Guy's mannerisms only continue to deteriorate. He no longer sleeps or forms an effort to reach the food or water, let alone to even use the bathroom. Instead, he takes to urinating and defecating in the opposing ill-lit corner. Piles and pools of his excrement gather there like the accumulating waste of a caged animal.
Things were bad.
Rexford shares from the following interview.
We honestly should have stopped and packed everything up then and there. But we had precise instructions to see it to the end. There was one night Victoria and I were working together. I remember stepping out to get some fresh air and coming back to her gasping, her hand cupped over her mouth in shock. I quickly checked the cameras and saw exactly what had her horrified. Guy was digging into his excrement and smearing it all over the wall. At first, I thought it was nothing but a smothered mess of unintelligible garble. But then I saw exactly what he was writing. They, everywhere, turn off light. After that, Victoria wanted nothing further to do with the experiments. She told us she was done being party to torture. Westbrook was also losing the amount of time he could give, so things mostly fell on my shoulders. I didn't mind it much. I wanted to be involved. I wanted more than anything to see to the success of the experiment.
With 2 days left of Guy's confinement, Rexford takes it on himself to make the final push.
I was trying to think of a way to ease him back into the light, so I thought of a plan. Little by little, I was going to amp the lantern's voltage until the room was nothing but light. No more darkened corners for him to hide in.
To set his plan in motion, Rexford starts amplifying the soft blue hue within the room. The light begins to lick up the walls and climb over the bed. Guy quickly takes notice and noticeably shrinks further back. He tries to protest vainly, according to a recording of garbled feedback. Day 13, 4/13/16. Audio log, 315 hours inside.
Stop! You're drawing them closer. Are you listening? They will find me. Turn off the light. They will find me.
Ignoring Guy's clear objection, Rexford shines the light more strongly. It inches closer, burning away the shadowy blanket of Guy's position. In a desperate animalistic effort, Guy resorts to slamming his fists against the locked door, clawing at it fruitlessly with his nails. Simultaneously, as the last shade of his protective layer evaporates away, Guy makes a mad dash toward the lantern. With a desperate flail of his fist, he punches it, shattering the bulb in an eruption of glass, like an aerial fireworks shell. As the darkness once again overlaps the room, and with the adrenaline still racing through his system, He grabs handfuls of broken shards and shoves them in his mouth. The corrupted bits of audio still capture the sound of sharp bits breaking between his teeth. Rexford immediately abandons his post and rushes for the chamber. He opens the door to find a room with protein-stained bedsheets, hieroglyphic feces on the wall, and their test subject collapsed over the table.
The smell took me out.
Rexford commented.
An amalgam of different odors. Composites of sweat, urine, feces, blood, rotten, and other questionable smells I don't care to describe. I tried to block it out. The last thing I wanted to do was vomit as I pulled him out of there. He was sputtering something to me while spitting out globs of blood and broken glass. Something about his back burning. When I checked it for him, I had no idea what I was even looking at. Bruises. Hand-shaped bruises all over him.
On Wednesday, April 13th, at approximately 9:05 p.m., Guy is taken to Nassau University Medical Center, where he receives several stitches for his hand, and also the loose flaps of tissue in his mouth. He is constipated, running a fever, severely dehydrated, and malnourished. When examining the peculiar bruises lining his spine, Dr. Marion Cobb asks if Guy had been assaulted. When told no, he shares his thoughts.
In Vietnam, we refer to unexplained bruises as ghost bites, marks that appear without injury and have no business being there. It could run the risk of an underlying medical problem or even a risky blood disorder. We'll perform a complete blood count for any irregularities. He adds skeptically, however, if that is the case, I've never seen anything this prominently shaped before. The blood tests come back normal. As Guy recovers from his time in the bunker, he repeats the same series of tests and interview he took before his incarceration. The tests to do with his memory showed that it had been impaired. He struggles with even the simplest questions and takes 65% longer to complete each task. While admitted to the hospital, he is adamant that the nurse keep his room light off. As for the aftermath of the project, New York College journalist David Saxon is able to conduct a short interview with Guy on the first sunset of August. He goes on to describe the house where the exchange took place.
Dark. Not so much as a flicker in any of the rooms. All the bulbs were screwed out of everything. Even the windows were spray-painted black. When I asked if the light from our camera would be acceptable, he hesitantly agreed.
The reporter adds,
From what I could see of him, he looked very tired. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was pale, like the pigment was being sucked right out of him.
Saxon.
Here's the description of the experiment as written on your website. An effort to diminish the harrowing effects of solitary confinement through the use of light manipulation.
Guy nods in his chair. Saxon.
You've since retracted that statement. Why is that?
Guy.
Isn't it obvious? The result was not the one I wanted.
Saxon.
Right. In hindsight, do you think that you underestimated what 2 weeks in the bunker would be like?
Guy.
Perhaps. In the beginning, I thought that I had taken every precaution imaginable. I believed my mental fortitude could overcome any obstacle. I was wrong.
Saxon.
If you're comfortable enough to answer, I'd like to ask you more about your time in the bunker and about the hallucinations you experienced.
Guy.
Oh, yes. There were countless hallucinations in that place. Animals, toy cars, music, you name it. But that isn't what you're asking about, is it?
Saxon.
Well, no. I was referring to the things that, killed the mouse.
Guy.
I can't tell you how many nights I've spent praying that what I witnessed in that place was a simple fabrication of the mind. But it isn't that complex. A light was on in a dark place, and something took a liking to it. For a time, I believed what I saw in there wasn't real. That was until I started seeing them at home. Things rustling around, doors inching open, nails raking the kitchen tiles. Looking for me.
Saxon clears his throat uncomfortably.
Is that why your house is so dark?
Guy.
I'd like to ask you something now. Do you have any kids at home?
Saxon.
Huh. Yeah. I have one with another on the way. Why do you ask?
Guy.
Do they still sleep with a nightlight?
Saxon.
What is the relevance with that?
Guy inches forward in his chair.
You may want to tell your friend to turn the camera light down. They followed me home. Hopefully, they don't follow you.
Saxon.
What do you mean by that?
No further questions are answered. And that was The Lighthouse Project by author Michael Page. A little about the author. Well, Michael Page is a published short story author and aspiring novelist. He tends to delight in horror and thriller tales. Not all the pieces he writes will have their happy endings, but he assures you there will be no lack of trying. His work has been featured in several literary magazines as well as a wide variety of anthologies, both printed and digital. Page is always willing to attempt new genres or adopt different writing styles, but as he says,
It never hurts to keep your roots well fed.
Thanks, Michael.
And do old Drew Blood a favor, would you? Subscribe to his podcast wherever you do your listening and leave him a 5-star review and a kind word, even if you're listening on YouTube. He needs soldiers on all fronts to win this battle, and he appreciates it. To hear a premium ad-free edition of tonight's and all the other episodes, visit simplyscarypodcast.com today and click Patrons in the upper menu. You'll find yourself at chillintalesfordarknights.com, where you can become a patron for as little as $5 per month and get access to their entire audio archive, all ad-free and available to download or stream. Thank you for your time and for supporting our sponsors. When you support our sponsors, you support this show. If you happen to use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, you can follow and subscribe to Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights there, where you'll get all the latest updates and new releases and have the chance to interact with them each and every week. Oh, and you can find Drew Blood on Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. The Drew Blood's Dark Tales podcast is accepting submissions, friend. If you've got a story or two you'd like to be featured on the show, send it to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com. If selected, you'll get the full treatment, 10 bananas.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.